Amigos, welcome back. For those who are new to me, my name is Adiola and I share content about my experiences as a single woman living here in Merida, Yucatan, Mexico. And mostly I've actually been discussing about real estate. So that's buying or renting here in Merida because this is where I live, as well as a few other things. So today's video will be a series that I want to touch on, and it is a follow-up video to a video that I posted last year on a construction fraud that I am a victim of. So I'm gonna share a link to the video in the description box below so that you can also go, and watch it. So the video was quite long. When I recorded it, it was quite long. So I wanted to just break it down into a few series. And in this video, I'm just going to be sharing some of the mistakes that I made as a newbie immigrant here in Mexico and some lessons learned so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. Now in this video, I'm also going to be sharing somewhere here just a random video from this particular fake contractor, right? Because this guy is just living his life as if nothing happened. So here I'm just gonna be sharing some of his social media posts to also, as a way, also for you to have something else to also watch. So now today's video actually is focusing on the finances of the project. Okay, so like what I ordered versus what I got. So I'm gonna be putting a picture of what I actually ordered, what I was supposed to get versus what he gave me. I will put the picture here as well. So everything started for me in 2023. So it's been over 2 years now. It's getting close to 3 years. 2023 January, I was looking for builders, right? I was looking for builders. I asked around, I talked to a few people, and I was sent a few referrals. I talked to a few people, I got a few quotes, and at the end of the day, I went with this guy who came highly recommended. And I actually went to his office in Las Americas. Professional, everything checked out. He even came by the property to take drone footage, right? So I'm also going to be sharing, the drone footage that he took, right? He created a WhatsApp group with me, himself, and his team, and just everything checked out, right? I think I'm going to do a different video on, the architectural designs that I got from him, because like I have a binder. Actually, let me show you. So this is the binder that I got, right? And it has pretty much a plan of what I was supposed to get. So everything was actually quite professional. There was no red flag up until that moment. I even went with a friend, just so he can just give me his opinion. He had nothing negative to say as well. So anyway, we started, and then so it took me 3 months to actually decide to work with them, because I was also talking to other people. I was trying to get some quotes, right, to compare and such, and I just went with him only because his communication was very fast, right? The other person I was considering, like, he would take sometimes a week to respond, and then I would have to send him multiple messages before he will respond, and it's actually quite common here. Sometimes these professionals will do that because they might have a lot on their plate and they just don't know how to say no, so they might even ghost you. So, and I have another video about getting ghosted by contractors, right? And it's not just contractors, right? So, and then I was like, you know what, why am I forcing myself over this guy when this other guy has been following up with me to see if I was ready to work with him? Why not just go and work with this person who looked like he wanted the business, right? Rather than me chasing after somebody who clearly was busy. Even though he was a professional, he actually built the apartment building that I lived in for over 4 years, right? Again, it came highly recommended, and his office was actually about a 5-minute bike ride to my apartment then. But I went with this guy who was about a 30 minutes drive from my house, right? Because I was just like, you know what, it seems like this guy actually wanted the business. And when I went to his office, everything was good. Now, unfortunately, I can't show a picture of his office because he closed it down after he duped me. So anyway, I was like, okay, let's go with this guy. So again, I'm gonna put a video of some of his social media content. Also, he was active on social media, on Facebook and I believe TikTok, because when I would go to his office and I will ask him some questions, he would just go and pull up some of his content, right? So jobs that he's done in the past, and we just put it up to just show me, hey, this is what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Because then I knew nothing about construction. Now I do. Now I do. So then I knew nothing about construction. So I would ask him, and then he would just go to his computer or he would just go to his TikTok or what have you to pull up content, right? So I was like, okay, this guy seems quite professional and just everything checked out. And the quotes that he gave me, it wasn't like it was the cheapest because after getting scammed, I was talking to another contractor. Like they wanted to shame me, like, oh, it's probably because it was cheap. I was like, no, this guy wasn't cheap. Like I got other people's quotes. It wasn't like it was cheap. And then they actually looked at the budget. They were like, oh, actually, he charges around what we would charge, right? And then I got another quote recently, and I actually found out that this guy, Cover Construcciones, actually charged me significantly more, compared to a quote that I got recently, 2025. 2 years and about 6 months after he gave me his quote, I got a cheaper quote, right? So the quotes he gave me, obviously, they were from 2023, like March, April 2023, compared to new quotes that I got because I still have other projects because the project that he gave me obviously was incomplete. So I still need to finish the project. So I asked for a budget from, again, somebody that was referred to me, and I actually went and I compare it to his quotes. I was like, wow, this guy actually was overcharging me on so many aspects, right? So again, it wasn't like, I went with the cheapest and like the cheapest. No. Like his office, everything looked professional, AC, very nice. It looked like a builder's office, a contractor's office. He had Google reviews. The person who referred me to him said that he had worked on some renovation project for her and also other neighbors in her area. So she was like, I highly recommend it. I was like, okay, I guess let's go with this guy then. Yeah, so March, when I decided to work with him, we had to actually do a few things, right? First, we had to create the architectural designs or plans. So obviously, I would know what we're building. That took about a month. And then we had to do a demolition. The demolition also, that's another story time on its own. So we did the demolition, and then afterwards and then he was supposed to actually get permits, right, for the house. So permits, and then now to start building. So it takes a few months before you can actually start to build, right? So eventually we were supposed to start in October, right? So from, let's say, April, when we started with the process, like the designs, permits, demolition, everything, to now building in October, right? Because it wasn't a renovation. If it was a renovation, you just go, you do whatever you need to do. Within, let's say, 4 months, you should be done. But because I was building from foundation, even though that wasn't supposed to be the case, it took longer. So yeah, so this video actually will focus more on the construction aspect because, like I said, we had other projects before that. Paying him for the architectural design, paying him for the permits, paying him for the demolition, and then the fourth stage was then paying him for the actual construction. So then I actually had two options, at least for myself. One would be to just pay the builder material and labor, right? Or the other option would be to just pay him labor, and then I would just handle all the materials myself. But I was like, you know what, this is kind of stressful. I'm still new in the country. Only then it was like less than 3 years. Yeah, like let's say over 2 years, a little bit less than 3 years. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to have any stress. So let me just, trust this builder and then just pay him for everything, right? So that was the first mistake that I did. First lesson learned, right? If possible, try not to pay them for material and labor. Now, if you're building off site, let's say you're in the US, you're in Canada, and then there's construction going on, you have a developer, then you might have to pay them everything. There are trustworthy developers, like the guy who finished the project. Actually, I could have done that with him because it was actually trustworthy. But I was like, you know what? I don't want to end up in a position whereby, again, I pay you money and then now you're giving me excuses, right? So I was like, you know what? Let me just separate it, right? So that's what I should have done. Just pay him labor. So at least that way, I will only need to pay him after a job is done, not before. Because when you're paying for material and labor, you have to give them money at the beginning, right? So that they can now go and buy the materials and now they can now start building, right? So that was actually when everything went south for me, right? That was the biggest mistake that I made, the biggest mistake, right? And I'm trying not to regret that because, well, in this life, you will overcome many challenges, right? And you're going to make a lot of mistakes and you just have to learn from those mistakes and carry on. So that was the biggest mistake that I made, which was trusting him with my life savings, right? So the contract that we had signed, because also, yeah, I actually went to his office. I spent about 2 hours going back and forth on the budget sheet, going like line by line. I actually translated the budget sheet into English to make sure that I understood every single concept. And I made a video a while back on, how much it costs to build in terms of labor and then materials. Well, materials, that's still pending, but labor. And I actually went through some of those concepts with you guys, right? Like how much it costs to build a wall, how much it costs to put cement to whatever, right? So construction, like it's like they give you like many sheets of paper, right? And it's like they break everything down line by line. So I already did that video. And again, I'm going to actually attach a playlist of the construction update. So if you're looking to build, you can just go through those videos. So the contract that I signed then, it was missing electric, right? Electricals, because I thought the budget that he gave me to install electricity was just too high. Like it was very high. And there was another concept as well that I asked him to remove, right? And thank God I did that. Otherwise, I would have paid him significantly more. Also, fencing, right? So the budget he gave me for fencing was ridiculous. The budget he gave me to build a swimming pool, it was actually standard. So that was okay, but again, I couldn't afford it. And also the budget he gave me to put electricity in the house, indoor and outdoor, was just too much. So I was okay, let's remove all those for now, right? And then at least, there are some other things we can do in the meantime, like we can start with the foundation and such, right? And then he told me that he will talk to the electrician, right? And then because I changed a few things on the plan, so he will talk to the electrician, and then the electrician will give him an update on the new pricing. That never happened, right? So this is again, and that was one of the red flags that eventually I became aware of. And it's also something very common here where the workers will just come up with lies that make sense to them and they feel it'll make sense to you automatically, but you just go along with it because they have your money already, right? And you're kind of stuck. I was okay, let's remove a few things, right? And actually he was the one who actually suggested that, because this guy was in a rush, right, to get me to give him money, right? Because even going back, I was like, okay, I also missed another red flag, the fact that he was following up with me. So even if they follow up with you, it doesn't mean that they are being professional, because here they don't follow up as much. You have to follow up with them, right? So when someone is following up with you, sometimes it could be, not always, it could be a red flag. Like, why are you sending me so many messages? I already told you I'll get back to you when I'm ready to work with you. So also that was another thing. So anyway, so he removed a few things, and so the budget now came down to 1,007,102 pesos and 9 cents. So I'm gonna put the number up here, after he removed a few things. With that, then he came up with a contract, like a legally binding contract, right? So second mistake that I also made, right, was signing a contract, because here in Mexico, contract means nothing. And I'm saying that because I've been in litigation with this guy for over a year, getting close to 2 years now. We do have a contract, because people always ask, oh, is there a contract? Did you sign a contract? Did he sign a contract? And my answer was yes, right? Well, my answer is always yes, but the contract still hasn't refunded any of my money, and this guy is living his life like nothing happened. So signing a contract. Now, signing a contract could help, but here in Mexico, it means nothing, really. It's just a piece of paper. It means nothing. People don't honor their word. It doesn't matter if it's verbal communication or written communication. Nobody cares, right? So yeah, I do have a contract, and that could be another video where I could actually share, exactly what was on the contract. But this video is about the numbers. So like I said, by the time we went back and forth on a few things, the budget came down to 1 million pesos because we were trying to finalize other things. So another crazy thing this guy did was actually starting to build without the electric and plumbing plan, because that should have been factored in when you start building, like when you start building from foundation, right? Because again, remember I said that he had suggested removing a few things while he confirms with his team, or I guess the electrician that he will be working with. In the meantime, I should just pay him this money so he could start on the other aspect. Which to me, I was thinking, okay, it shouldn't take more than a week or two, but by then, at least we should have finished digging the foundation, right? Because digging the foundation, you don't need the electric plan, to dig and to start with the foundation. To me, at least, I thought that made sense. But this guy was building, because when he eventually abandoned the project and I brought in a few other contractors so they can let me know if they were interested in finishing the job, they were all shocked by the fact that I had a building up, but no electric plan, no plumbing plan, nothing was in place, because they were just like, how is this possible, right? So that's why I'm calling this guy who was claiming to be an engineer a charlatan, right? Because if you are an actual professional, why did you build a whole building without electric and plumbing, like factored into your building? So now let's go back. That was a contract that I signed in terms of the total amount. So it included the material, so blocks, cement, paint, everything that was needed, and of course labor, everything that was needed to build a 2-story unit. And actually the real contract for everything, electric, plumbing, was about 1.3 million pesos thereabout, right? So that would have been for the complete project, but this was like maybe 85%, because the electric and the plumbing was kind of high, so we were trying to finalize that. But what I signed then was only 1 million pesos. So it wasn't like it would have cost me 1 million pesos to build 2 floors, even though it should have, because the estimates that builders will give you is about 10,000 to 12,000 pesos per square meters, I believe, per square meters, materials and labor. So my building actually is about 50 square meters downstairs, 50 square meters upstairs, so that's 100 square meters. So really, it should have really cost me 1 million pesos, right? Yeah, to like everything, plumbing, electricity, everything, right? So yeah, so that should have been the standard price. So that's what, when he gave me the budget and I saw the budget, I was like, oh, what's going on? Okay, and also red flag number 2, or the next red flag that I missed, was the fact that, so when he did the demolition, that changed the building plan, because he was only supposed to demolish the roof, but the way they did their demolition, it actually compromised the structure. that was here before, because the house had stone walls. So because it's a very old house, or it was a very old house, so when they demolished, there were just, I think, three walls left. I'm gonna put a picture of that here as well. There were like three walls left, and it was like, you know what, we're gonna have to bring everything down, because if you plan to build 2 stories, 2 floors, these walls, they will not support the second floor. I was like, yeah, that's kind of true. So we just brought everything down. Again, the video will be here. So we just brought everything down. And yeah, so because of that, now we will need to spend more on materials, right? So that changed the initial budget that he gave me. So and then he now went back to now edit the budget. And what he did, I think he just went and he just quickly did it, because again, he was in a rush for me to give him money, right? So he just quickly, I think, put in some formula or whatever. And so that just ridiculously raised the budget. And then I was like, wait, what's going on? Like, I know obviously the budget will go up a little bit, but not like what I'm looking at right now. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, and then he was going back and forth with me. I was like, no, like, go and check the budget. Because remember, I said I was checking everything line by line. So when he sent me the new quote, I compared it with the old quotes line by line, right? So I knew some lines will go up, the other lines should stay the same. So when I saw the lines that should go up, like they went up by a ridiculous amount, I quickly told him. And then he was like, oh yeah, that's true, okay. And then he now went and then he now fixed everything, and then he sent me, the updated budget. And so that was what I now approved. So that was another red flag that I missed, right? Something similar happened to me recently with a carpenter. He gave me a quote, and then about a month later, when I was supposed to pay him, for some reason that quote had gone up. Luckily, I had the same quote written down on my notepad, and he also had his own quote written down on his notepad. And I noticed that he had gone to change the number. So that's why it's always important to document things, right? Document things, even send them text messages. That's one thing that I forget sometimes. Sometimes we would have a verbal agreement, and then sometimes I would actually send them a text message to remind them, like, okay, so here's how much you told me, here's how much I gave you as a deposit, and so here's how much is left. Because these guys can change on you. So that's also one thing to also watch out for when working. It could be renovation, construction, it could be hiring a plumber, electrician, or whatever. Always make sure that everything is documented, and you also send them a text, to be like, hey, okay, I'm just confirming, here's what we talked about, right? If let's say you guys had a verbal agreement or you had a meeting, like you met in person. So going back to the quote, so I already explained the fact that this guy tried to like tamper with the original quotes that he gave me. So now, after I signed the contract, I signed the contract on October 5th. And so the contract said that I should pay him 40% of the contract at the beginning. Again, that was the other mistake that I made. The first mistake I made was paying for material and labor. The second biggest mistake that I made then was paying him this big deposit at once. Which in many cases, that's actually standard, right? Some places might only charge you like 20% upfront, 30% upfront, so they could go and buy the materials, pay workers, do everything that they need to do. And then what will happen is afterwards, as the project goes on, then you pay them, what's left. So that was the second mistake I made. The third mistake I made was actually agreeing with his payment plan. Now, the contract, I actually asked a friend to take a look at the contract and the budget for me. But I think he was probably busy. He probably didn't even look at the budget, right? So, but he told me, oh yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But he probably didn't look at it. So the third mistake that I made was not getting like a legit third party, like finding just a third party. Could be an architect, it could be a contractor, and just pay them like, here's 1,000 pesos. Can you please look over the budget? Can you please look over the contract? What is standard in the market? What do you recommend? Right? So that was the other biggest mistake, the third mistake that I made, right? because I was just asking a friend to do me a favor and he didn't actually do anything. So his payment plans, right? I will be explaining that very shortly, right? So the payment plan should actually coincide with the building plan, right? So every single week he was supposed to be having updates, and so every single week I will be paying him whatever amount that was left, right? Because he asked me for 40% of the 1,007,000 pesos, right? And so for the next several weeks, I will just be paying him what was left. So he told me that to build the 2 stories, it will only need 3 months. Which I'm thinking, what, like 3 months? That's ambitious, don't you think? Like, it was a no, he was quite confident 3 months, because again, remember, this guy was just trying to get me to pay him, very quickly, right? Because who knows? Apparently, he was in debt or something like that. I was at 3 months to build like 2 stories, but then also I sort of believed it because what I was looking for was like very simple: 2 stories, 1 bedroom, and that's it. Very simple, just blocks all over the place. The living room, the bedroom, the bathroom, that's it. And then you replicate the same thing upstairs, right? So I was like, you know what? It is doable, but I know construction takes time. So probably, like he's telling me 3 months, it'll probably take him like 4 months, right? So he says 3 months. Okay, sure. Let's just go with that. But obviously, it will probably take him 4 months. But let's just see, right? Because what I'm looking for is actually quite simple. Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, if you tell me 3 months, okay, that's fine. So what he did then was he now created a payment plan for 3 months. So for the 60% that was left, he now divided everything up over the next 11 weeks, right? So I paid him a big chunk, right? At the beginning. And actually that big chunk didn't go through my bank. I had to send it to him through wires, right? I had to send, and I noticed he was kind of like nervous, like, because again, I think he was just trying to get me to pay him ASAP. And another mistake that I made, aside from paying him the 40%, was also paying him so soon, after, like within just 1 week, even though he actually didn't start the project on the dates that he started the project a week later, meaning that my payment should have started a week later. And I think that was what I did, right? So now going back again to the numbers of this project. So what I'm going to do is I'll create a second part of the numbers because I don't want this other video to get long. Like I said, the contract that I signed was for 1 million pesos, and then he asked me for 40% of the 1 million pesos on the day that I signed the contract, October 5th, because he told me that he would start to build. Then it was on a Monday. So October 5th, it was on a Thursday or Friday, and then the following Monday he would start. So that would have been like October 8th, right? But he actually didn't start on that week. Like I said, he started on the second week. And then the rest of the 60% will be liquidated over the next 3 months that he built. Okay, so I'm gonna end this video right here, and in the next part I will be sharing the exact numbers. So I said that I paid him 40% and the other 60% was what I was supposed to pay him over the next 3 months. But yeah, I will just share that in the next part of this video. All right, so if you actually watch this video this far and you haven't subscribed yet, please do click on that subscribe button so that you can be part of the community and also learn from some of my mistakes. All right, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.